first is called remdesivir, a drug in late-stage trials that has been approved for use in the US and Australia for emergency cases.
Remdesivir is an antiviral drug developed for Ebola, but it didn't work. It does seem to work for COVID-19. It stops the division of the virus, so the RNA polymerase is blocked and the virus doesn't reproduce itself.
The second is called Regeneron.
It's a cocktail of antibodies developed to create an invisibility cloak, so the virus actually can't see the specific hook on the surface of the cells that it uses to infect those cells.
But there is concern that a sitting US president is being used as a guinea pig.
The Regeneron antibody that is attempted to be used in the president has only been reported in less than 300 patients so far, and whilst there is some promise, it is absolutely unprecedented that a president would receive a highly experimental drug at this level of its development.
The next 48 hours are crucial. It's the time when the virus can go either way. From the day someone catches the virus, it takes anywhere between 5 and 14 days for symptoms to show. But you could be contagious 3 days before that. The danger period is 10 to 15 days in. This is the stage Donald Trump is entering now. At this time, the body's immune system can have an overreaction fighting the virus. Recovery depends on the severity of the case. It can be 14 days after symptoms started for mild cases, 21 to 42 days for those requiring hospital care, and up to 56 days in the most severe cases.
If all goes well, the President could be out of hospital and back at the White House planning more of his trademark rallies, but that depends on a perfect recovery. And COVID has a dangerous history of derailing even the best-laid plans of Prime Ministers and Presidents. Philip Williams, ABC News, Washington.
In other news, young Australians and school leavers will have half their wages covered by the taxpayer if they enter an apprenticeship or traineeship in the next 12 months. The $1 billion wage subsidy scheme will feature in Tuesday's federal budget, which the Treasurer says will have job creation as its core. As political editor Andrew Probyn explains, it'll be a very different budget to the one Josh Frydenberg had originally hoped to deliver in May, before the pandemic forced a delay and upturned all economic thinking.
This is the budget tree. A different budget season, vastly changed economic circumstances.
It's got a fistful of dollars down the bottom.
It's got no fistful of dollars down there.
You probably have to dig below those roots.
This tree is usually blazing red at budget time. Are you going to make up for it on Tuesday? This document to confirm a budget deeper in the red than it's ever been.
Obviously, the deficit will be very significant and the debt burden will increase.
The Treasurer saying there's no alternative but to spend big to prop up the economy.
It is what it is. COVID-19 has turned the world on its head.
The JobKeeper payment has preserved millions of jobs during government-ordered shutdowns. The budget to switch from saving jobs to creating them.
We're helping to create 100,000 new apprentices.
Taxpayers to pay half the wages of new apprentices and trainees who are put on the books from tomorrow. A subsidy paid to any business, any size, for a year.
Beautiful spring lamb.
Perth butcher Colin Olsen says each of his 3 shops will benefit.
Fantastic opportunity for us to invest in our business, grow our staff.
A similar story for dentist Martin Fernando. He's got 4 Hobart practices.
The likelihood is that we'd engage 1 trainee for each of those locations, so that would be another 4 young employees in work.
But 3/4 of apprenticeships are currently filled by male workers.
We need to make sure that as we invest in jobs and invest in the future, that Australian women aren't left out, left in the lurch and left behind.
I would say to any young girls out there who are finishing up school now, put your hand up, call an Australian apprenticeship provider.
Keeping people in work requires us all to spend. The government hopes early income tax cuts will encourage people to open their wallets.
The problem with tax cuts, however, is that some people will choose to save that money.
Once those restrictions are eased and people are getting back to work and life is coming back to COVID-safe normal, then that more money will be spent, that savings ratio will go down.
As sobering as the debt and deficit numbers will be on Tuesday, the cost of servicing that debt will likely be smaller than it was pre-pandemic, when the debt was lower. That's because interest rates are at historic lows. With money that cheap, expect budget spending to be mountainous. Andrew Probyn, ABC News, Canberra.
With 2 weeks to go until Melbourne is set to see some restored freedoms, there's some concern about a rise in mystery COVID-19 infections. 12 new cases were reported in the state and a cluster at a shopping centre has grown to 20. But Premier Daniel Andrews says the state is still on track to loosen restrictions.
In Melbourne, it's all about the case numbers. Mike Tolhurst has been chalking up the daily tally outside his Northcote house for the past 2 months.
So it's a great way of connecting with the public and hopefully helping bring the numbers down.
There were 12 new cases today. 1 person died, taking the state's death toll to 806. There are 241 active cases, the same as yesterday. Today's 14-day average sits at 11.9, but there's only 2 weeks left to hit the target of 5 cases, which would trigger further easing of restrictions.
It's delicately poised, but we are there, ready. If we continue these numbers, continue this trend, we are ready to take that step, all things being equal, in just a couple of weeks' time.
The government is considering a new number that focuses on infections under investigation.
So instead of 12, and with 6 linked to outbreaks and clusters today, we should see 6.
Authorities are counting on everyone doing the right thing, gathering in small groups outdoors and wearing masks. Today, most were.
Outdoor activities are actually fine if you do them safely.
Police have patrolled parks and beaches over the weekend and say these people who weren't wearing masks became aggressive when police asked for their addresses. 3 of today's new infections are linked to the Butchers Club outbreak at Chadstone, taking that cluster to 20.
And it might be, again, super spreaders or super spreading events where someone is particularly infectious and there's only casual contact.
Doctors say that's why contact tracing is crucial.
We've outed this for months now, and we now see some coming to the table, coming to the party of these local public health units. I remain to be convinced that they will do the job. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, but in reality, this to me is the last roll of the dice.
There are 3 new mystery cases in Melbourne's southeast and outer west.
Mystery cases or cases of unknown origin remain a concern. We've got an uptick in the total number in the 14-day rolling period.
It will be a crucial 2 weeks. Margaret Paul, ABC News, Melbourne.
After a challenging year for regional Victoria, things are now just starting to look up. Many have taken advantage of the easing of restrictions to spend the school holidays enjoying their local areas.
The boats are back on the water and life is returning to Victoria's tourist towns.
We were elated. In fact, I dropped a tear. It was just so magical to have our paddle steamers. As you can hear, they're chugging along, they blow their whistles.
Places like Echuca have been on life support for months because of the lockdown and border restrictions.
When the border closure got put down, the river got closed.
Thank you very much.
But a reprieve from the New South Wales government came just in time for regional Victorians to enjoy the mighty Murray before the end of the school holidays.
There's lots of people around, people dying to get out of their homes, and we're now taking them up and down the river.
Towns across regional Victoria have been getting busier day by day as confidence grows.
This week has just been phenomenal. Regional Victorians getting out and actually seeing their local tourist attractions has been amazing.
At the Halls Gap Zoo, they've had some of their busiest days ever, but they wouldn't have made it this far without government assistance, including grants for animal feed.
The coronavirus obviously shut us down for 4 months. That's been tough. We've obviously gone backwards financially, but we've obviously done a few projects while we've been shut.
And they're not alone. At this winery in Western Victoria's Pyrenees region, Mark Summerfield has been expanding his restaurant.
I saw the opportunity to do renovations, to get back up and going.
He couldn't have done that without the support of his customers drinking more through lockdown.
It's not as though they're stocking up now and after this all finishes, our sales are going to go down. They're taking it home, they're drinking the wine now and they're getting more.
And like many, he's now banking on a domestic tourism boom.
I think that the future looks bright. Once we get out of lockdown or opens up a little bit, that we get much busier.
But with border restrictions still in place and Melburnians under lockdown, progress will be slow, particularly for communities like Echuca Moama that remain divided. Others have found ways to survive and thrive on their own.
I've got another bag, or can you squeeze it in?
After 17 years, organic vegetable producers Rod and Meg Blake stopped going to Melbourne markets.
But once the COVID came in, we felt a responsibility to our family, really, I suppose. They sort of laid the word on us and said, here's the time.
The couple took a gamble and decided to sell their produce at the farm gate instead.
I'm impressed because I know that they knew that we were here, and now they've come as far as from Portland, from Horsham, Dimboola. Oh yeah, I'm impressed.
The tiny coastal town of Port Fairy is dependent on Melbourne tourists, but they'll be cautious in welcoming them back. Hairdresser Vicky Hetherington had a close call after one of her staff members contracted coronavirus.
There was just so many fears. The fear of transmission to other staff members, the fear of transmission to our clients, and the possible worst fear of the spread to our community.
But the town avoided community transmission, and they're confident they can welcome tourists back safely.
I'm more than happy to welcome people back into the salon if they're honest with us. We just want honesty of, if you're not well, please don't come in, and please do the right thing by small regional towns.
I think it'll be great. But yeah, probably slowly does it, so that we don't have any problems going forward, and so we can remain open rather than having yet another lockdown.
Until then, caravan park owner Jenny Hyder-Smith is making the most of the downtime, ocean swimming every day.
A lovely thing to be able to do, and I think we will look back on this time as a pretty special time, really.
For regional Victorians, exploring your own backyard has never been more vital. Jess Davis, ABC News.
A study